Hey guys, this is Morgan J. Ingram here, part of the host of the SDR Chronicles, and I'm excited to have another guest, Dan from Apttus, Vice President of Marketing and Sales. He's going to dive into sales development and how the trend of marketing and sales alignment has played a big role, and also how you see SDR teams now reporting to marketing. So he's going to go into the overview of that, the tactics, the benefits he's seen from his organization and just being in the industry. So without any further ado, I'm going to let Dan introduce himself, and we're going to go on the topic of the day.
Awesome. So Morgan, thanks so much for having me. For everyone who's listening or watching, I'm sure you've watched the SDR Chronicles and watched Morgan just killing it with his thought leadership. So it's really cool to be a part of this. I'm Dan Fronin. I head up demand generation and sales development for Apttus. A little unicorn in the Silicon Valley. We do quote to cash. We are the leaders in that space. And recently we had a development at our company where sales development actually aligned and ended up reporting into our marketing function. And Morgan and myself thought it would be cool to talk about that topic today and how the great benefits that we've seen as a result of that.
Awesome. So let's dive into the first question. What do you see has been the biggest benefit from SDRs reporting into marketing?
I'd say that the number one benefit is that typically, I think with any company, when you're running a demand program or any kind of marketing program, marketers tend to have a tough time, let's just say, getting full sales or sales development buy-in. And what we found by having the team directly reporting into us, that we've been able to have an easier time giving them a seat at the table during the crafting of our marketing programs and really getting them to understand why we're doing it, but then getting their feedback on how it would work on their end so that we're just firing on all cylinders. So in essence, I kind of like to think that marketing was a 6-cylinder engine, and then by bringing the SDRs in and really giving them a seat at the table, we're in a V12 now, just kind of killing it with the success metrics.
So what are the metrics different when they're reporting to marketing? How's that differ from sales?
Metrics, not very much the difference. I mean, SDRs are really charged with building that pipeline, and demand and marketing on my end, particularly demand, really tied with pipeline generation as well. So I think the big metric that we've seen is just higher level of success with our actual marketing programs. So for instance, Apttus just won, not even won, but we got ranked as a leader in the CPQ Forrester Wave report, which is a huge deal, obviously, for our space. And when we went out and started to promote that, we had such tight alignment with our sales development team that we were really able to follow up and get the word out within like 24 hours because they had a seat at the table, because they were involved in crafting the campaign, because they knew what the success metrics were, they knew what the priority was, and they were really able to just really jump right into the strategy and be a partner with demand.
That's awesome, man. And that's really good to kind of have that process for the SDRs and kind of hop into that. And so, I've talked to a couple of people that were SDRs and they were importing to marketing, and they said that they were doing different type of processes. So I want to ask you guys on a high level strategy, did you guys find that, hey, there's more marketing plays you were running with more email outreach than calling, or did you do more social touches? What kind of was a different strategy that you guys kind of were doing with that new process and the new reporting?
Yeah, I think we're kind of in the middle of overhauling our process right now. And I think the thing that we're really truly realizing is that, to your point, email touches, social touches, we're definitely injecting more into that. But more than anything, we're injecting more of a multi-touch strategy into each unique person and or account that we have in our system that we're trying to go after. So really that account-based kind of marketing look that we're really after is making sure that if someone is communicating or responding via social, that's what they're getting. If they're an email person, that they're getting that. If they're a phone person, they're getting that. So we're really trying to employ all those different tactics to make sure that we're communicating the way that someone wants to be communicated with, really ultimately giving them the choice and making sure that our SDRs are comfortable with all the different communication vehicles, because ultimately that's part of our jobs is to make sure that we're serving our prospects and clients however they want and need to be serviced.
Yeah, and you want to meet your audience where they're at, right, with the right value. So exactly. How was that, I guess, switching teams as well? how the mindset of the SDR, was it changed? Do you find it was a smooth transition? Kind of how did that go as well?
I think it's an ongoing process because, you know, we're very fortunate at Apttus that our tenure for an SDR is well over a year and a half now. I mean, we have a very seasoned team in terms of SDRs, and a lot of people have their tried and true method of what works for them. So it's really us incentivizing them to try new things. It's us showing them success metrics when other people try new things, and really just you know, getting people as comfortable as possible. Not necessarily just throwing down a mandate that it absolutely has to be that way, but for each person to find their own balance, as long as there's kind of what I like to call an acceptable minimum in terms of using all the various strategies that we have available to us.
Yeah, and I think that's big as well. And let's kind of dive into the high level optics of the marketing and sales alignment. How do you go about that process and help it streamline into SDR demo flow and accelerating that pipeline?
Yeah, to me, I think the biggest thing was getting our operations game really down pat. So as part of the two teams coming together, we thought long and hard about our marketing operations and actually decided to bring one of our more seasoned BDR managers over, who was very operationally focused to head up a combined SDR and marketing ops team to really pay attention to if marketing says that this is a marketing qualified lead, do the SDRs agree with that? And if they don't, why? And really just kind of fine tuning everything so that everyone has had a voice at the table, everyone agrees and is subscribed and bought into what we're ultimately trying to achieve.
And during that process, are you giving the SDRs more autonomy over that process of saying what's qualified and not qualified? Or is that dependent upon the account executive? Is that dependent upon higher executives? How do you guys go throughout that process?
So really our process is it's an account-based marketing process. So first and foremost, okay, the business all the way up through the executive level is agreeing on what our target accounts are. And then really when we define an MQL or a marketing qualified account, which we do a lot of now, and the engagement around that, it's really around a set of behavior scores that we've outlined. Whether they're looking at emails, downloading assets off the website, whether they've seen us in the field at a trade show or a field event or any other kind of action that we deem is important. And then we'll usually score it up. And based on that score, it would go to our SDRs. And what we've done is opened up a feedback loop so that if something bubbles up that shouldn't have, we're constantly looking at why that happened if it wasn't supposed to, and how we can continually refine so that our SDRs are really working on the things that matter. And then when they're not working on anything that's inbound, that they're using their time to be able to outbound prospect and do some more account focused approaches.
And how does that scoring work again?
So it's really it's a mixture of behavior and like firmographics. So if it's a VP or above at a target account, you're going to probably want to talk to them. If it's a senior manager or above at a target account, you might not want to talk to them right away. But then if they've done a few things that are important on our website or downloaded something that indicates some sort of buying behavior, then we would score them up and bring them over to an SDR.
Awesome. And then let's go into the plays for your marketing sales alignment. How are you providing air cover for your SDRs as they do their outbound marketing strategy?
Yeah, I mean, so this has actually been a lot of fun, and really enjoyed this a lot over the past few months. And what we've really been doing is, again, starting at the target account level. When we decide on a target account and what we're trying to go in with them, whether that's an e-commerce message or a legal message or some sort of sales message, depending on what product we think they might be interested in speaking with Apttus about, we're actually then going and targeting those personas via LinkedIn, via Facebook, via Twitter, so that while the SDR is taking the lead in their outbound prospecting, we're, to your point, running that digital air coverage where we're putting the same exact sort of messaging, same sort of content, and same thought leadership that they're talking about as they're having conversations around digital places where these people might be, so that they're just constantly being reinforced with the same Apttus message over and over to kind of get that higher likelihood of them responding favorably to our SDRs and their efforts.
Yeah, and that definitely creates the ease of access into accounts. Is there any other plays you're running beyond that you've really liked so far?
I think the best play that we're starting to run, and I'll say starting because it's still in its infancies, is actually pulling your executives into plays. So when we're actually starting to kind of do an outbound cadence into an account, we'll actually throw in a message from our CEO or our chief customer officer. And one instance is Kirk Crappe, our CEO, recently wrote a book on quote to cash, and we've been using that as a tool by having it sent out to different target personas and target accounts. And one of the plays will be to actually have him follow up with a personal email talking about the book and asking for feedback, which has been pretty cool to pull the executives in on that level.
Awesome. And then I don't want to touch on this, but marketing or sales, who's determining the target accounts, or is it the SDR?
It's a combination of everyone. So we have a business operations team that will kind of work with the sales team and pull what they think target accounts should be. And then on the marketing side, we have a propensity model that we've developed that will run against kind of best customer match based on what successes we've had in the past, as well as any key verticals that we're trying to get into or anything else like that. And then the sales team as well has their own propensity model. So we kind of mix kind of the bottom-up approach and the top-down approach to kind of arrive at what we think is the perfect mix of accounts.
Cool. And then let's kind of go into, what happens if there is disalignment, or how to get into the process of this alignment that you guys currently have, and you're definitely seeing success within the benefits. What's the process that it took to get there, and what are some things that, as an SDR or sales development leadership needs to look out for so it's not disaligned and there's not miscommunication for marketing and sales?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the biggest thing is, before the SDR team started reporting into our marketing organization, I thought, and I still believe, that I had a pretty tight relationship with our former head of SDRs. And what I found after he left the organization is that there was a lot of unknown questions that we had between each other's teams that we were never comfortable asking. So we on the very surface level had the understanding that if we were running a campaign, that we had the SDR buy-in, that we had the performance metrics that we were after. But I don't think that we truly felt 100% success, because we didn't know if they were having problems with a system in their department, or if they had been asked by a different department to make something else a priority, or aligned in just some other way that was not communicated. So I think more than anything, we've almost reduced a layer of communication that could potentially disrupt the pipeline generation activities, if you will. And I think that that's probably been the biggest thing. And I think, in general, for anyone who's listening or watching this, that, have an overly honest conversation with your counterpart in marketing or in sales development, and don't be afraid to ask each other the tough questions. Because I think ultimately, if everyone has the same mind frame that you're after the success of the business and you want to make marketing and SDRs as great as possible and as successful as possible, then you will be successful, as long as you kind of hold each other to whatever standards you think you need to have in place.
Definitely. And you brought up a great point there of, being candor, asking those tough questions. How do you go about asking those tough questions and having maybe those tough conversations without really offending that person and maybe causing kind of a disconnect there?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is like knowing when to ask the question. So if I'm in a room with 10 people and I need to ask a tough question, I might not ask it in that room.
Right.
I might go and ask that person if they want to go have a beer, if I'm at that level with them. But more than anything, I'll probably usually start with like hey, the reason I'm asking this is because of X, Y, Z, and I'll assume and take some blame if there's a performance issue on my own end first, so that I come in not in as much of in a position of strength, but almost in a position of like, hey, I'm going to meet you in the middle. I think that there's an issue here. Here's my fault in that issue. Do you have any fault in this issue yourself? More of, I guess, what you could say, more of a safe way of having that conversation. And if someone is known to be defensive, then you just have to ask the questions anyway, and then understand that there's going to be defensiveness, but hopefully you're starting to erode that defensiveness a little bit over time. Yeah,
and I agree with you, because it's, it can get to a point where it's like, I need to tell this person something, but I know they might be defensive and it may not go the way that I want it to. And that's definitely super difficult, especially if you know that this person may get offended from it. But I think overall, if you have the true marketing sales alignment, that's what you're really striving for, right?
Exactly. And I think the biggest thing with true alignment is no idea is a bad idea, regardless of where it came from. So, I'm hoping that as we're becoming more and more aligned, that I actually have some of my best marketing ideas coming from my SDRs. I mean, that would be an amazing scenario, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that was actually my next question is, how do you encourage SDRs to speak up their mind on strategies that they actually may see working and be beneficial for the organization, even if they don't feel like they can actually be an asset? How do you kind of give them that platform to have a voice?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we use this system called Tiny Pulse, where we're actually interviewing every week our SDRs and our marketers, just kind of getting a pulse on how their happiness is at the organization, but then also asking little questions along the way, like, what's the best marketing idea that you've seen that you scratch your head and wonder why Apttus isn't doing, or what's the number one idea that you have that you just haven't brought up yet, or anything like that. And that tends to bubble things up. I think people feel more comfortable because it's in an electronic environment and it can be anonymous if they want it to be. But then beyond that, I think just having injecting kind of the creativity and kind of, I don't know if I'd want to call it a mandate, but like the okayness for someone to be able to say, hey, I have a great idea and I think you need to hear it throughout the department, whether it's an intern in the department or our SVP of marketing. Like, everyone's there is a marketer and they should have the ideas and they should be able to bubble them up. So I think it's just environmental and making that an okay thing within the team.
Yeah, definitely great point. And Dan, I want to bring this up to you as well. What if the people in the audience are like, great, I understand this is really beneficial, but we're just not there yet, or like, that sounds like a lot of work and a lot of communication that I don't want to do. What would you tell someone, like the real, like, why they should actually be thinking about this and not actually kind of like turning their head against it?
Because to me, I mean, I think when you and I first started talking today, I literally equate it to an engine. And if I'm able to go and get 6 cylinders worth of horsepower and do my own thing on my own, and I know that I'm able to align with another team and add another 6 and actually just crush it, I'm going to take the time to crush it, because I know that ultimately, if we're driven by performance because we're paid commissions, or whether we're driven by stockholder value, if we're a public company or a pre-IPO, like, we all know that we're after either our own paychecks or the value of the business, or a combination of both. And then most importantly, the happiness of our customers. And I think that the more collaboration that there is and the more alignment there is, the better you're going to have across all of those different things within the company.
So the collaboration is key.
Worth it, yeah. And then, of course, they say that it takes more muscles to frown than it does to smile. And I think that the same holds true for alignment. It takes a lot more energy to kind of keep people unaligned than it does to just open up the walls and say, let's do this thing.
Yeah, 100%. And what would you say was the biggest surprise for you when you actually started going this marketing sales alignment, that you saw benefits for your sales organization and for your SDRs?
I'd say the biggest surprise for me right off the bat was I think salespeople and SDRs kind of get a negative connotation that like, if there's no one on the floor, then they might not be working as hard as they can. I think we've all seen that, like,
yeah,
old school boiler room, like, get on the phones, let's hear the noise, whatever. And I think the biggest thing that I saw just from my own eyes was, wow, this team works their what's off, and they're actually some of the smartest people within the company. So I've never met a group that had a better command of Apttus products and the Apttus messaging. And I think that that's allowed us to really kind of whip the fast horse, if you will. So taking them and bringing them into developing plays and really getting their thoughts on what messaging should be, as opposed to just handing them some canned messaging that might come out of marketing or product marketing, but really, giving them a starting point with something, but letting them really craft it and put their own touch to it, because they're the ones that are doing it on a daily basis, and they know what the hook, line, and sink is and how to catch.
Yeah, and that's big. And yeah, definitely say in our organization, like, you know, every single SDR is just really understand the product, they understand the messaging, is because you're on the front lines every single day talking to those prospects, you know, turning them over to an account executive, and you really can actually dive into those conversations and you become more knowledgeable as an effect of it.
Absolutely.
And so a couple last questions here. And one of the questions I really have, and I really want to see kind of what your perspective is on this, is, you know, when you were going through this process and you were getting market sales alignment, you were having these meetings and you were having these conversations with the SDRs, what was, in that part of that process, what was one thing you wish you would have been like, oh, I wish we could have done that earlier, or something you saw that was like, we should have been doing this like maybe a year ago or like 6 months ago?
I think probably tying the SDR function more to our field marketing strategies. So I think we've had a little bit of trouble seeing success with field activities, just from the standpoint that it's never really been our marketing team's strong suit for smaller sort of micro events. Large events like our Accelerate conference, we have no problem bringing 3,500 people and bringing the noise. But for some reason, these micro events, and what we realized a couple weeks ago, is that by getting a really nice incentive and bringing the SDRs into the strategy of the actual field event, we've been able to crush it and actually drive attendance and have really nice success there. So to me, I kind of wish that we had figured out earlier on that we should be bringing individual SDRs for their territories into the strategy and really aligning to what's going to motivate them to really help drive to these events earlier on in the process.
Now, with these events, are they webinars? Are they just actual like events that are like a Rainmaker, like a Dreamforce? Like, what kind of events are these, and how do you select which SDRs get to go?
So it's a combination, and the ones that I'm really referring to are actual in-person events. So basketball games, football games with executives from prospect companies, some of our customers, and sometimes ecosystem partners, whether it's Salesforce or Microsoft. And yeah, to your point, what we're starting to do is actually align it so that the SDRs that are involved in the strategy and are driving the attendance, that they will be able to go, to kind of show that that we mean business, that like if you really are truly behind this strategy and you believe in it and you're driving the attendance, we want you on the ground there too, having those conversations and really, you know, in a way, building your career as well. I mean, going and having those executive conversations and being a partner to your account executive in the field.
Awesome. Yeah. So that was actually my next question there, is that like, is it just the SDRs who are going, or just the account executives? It sounds like it's both.
It's both. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. And then Dan, thank you so much for the value that you brought today on the Chronicle. One last question for you that I ask every single guest that comes on. What is the #1 piece of advice that you would give to a new SDR as they come into their role?
Say more than anything, like, don't be afraid to get creative. So, you know, we know that an SDR is tasked with a pretty hard job. It's to make it rain when there's really no water or anything to make it rain. And you know what I mean? So I think don't be afraid to be creative. Don't be afraid to go and talk to your marketing team, to talk to your AEs, to talk to other people within the organization on what you can use to be successful. Because I think what I've seen, and yourself included, is like the most successful people, especially in sales development, are the ones that are just not afraid to not sit in the background and really get out and start having their voice heard, creating their own kind of unique brand and thought leadership, and really just making it rain.
Awesome. Love it, Dan. Well, thank you so much for being on the Chronicle. As I always say, guys, keep dialing, and I'll see you guys soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.